Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast. Today is Tuesday, December 27th, 2022. Today I'm going to recap Monday Night Football from last night and yesterday's Lone College Bowl game. And we have 4 college bowl games today, so that's fun. College basketball returns tonight with a small slate. We have NBA, NHL, some soccer, NFL power rankings, each team's most overrated and underrated players over the last 10 years, news and notes, and best bet. We'll start with Monday Night Football. Boring game, lame game. Chargers come out on top, 20-3 as they clinch their first playoff berth since 2018. This is Justin Herbert's first trip to the postseason. Chargers are 9-6, Indy's 4-10-1. Justin Herbert, 24-31, 235 yards and a pick, and Nick Foles, 17-29, 143 yards and 3 picks. I don't know where 400 came from. So, Chargers get the win. So now, one spot left in the AFC. It's between the Dolphins, the Jets, the Patriots, the AFC South second place team, whether that's Tennessee or Jacksonville, and Pittsburgh. So we'll see what happens. All right, college bowls. There was one yesterday, and I will go ahead to the ones for today. The Quick Lane Bowl, New Mexico State over Bowling Green, 24-19. Mexico State finishes 7-6. Bowling Green finishes at 6-7. 4 games today, 12 o'clock on ESPN. It's the Camellia Bowl between Georgia Southern and Buffalo. My line's Buffalo by a half, total 61 and a tenth. And it is, let's see here. Buffalo is a 5.5 point underdog, total 66.5. Woo! Give me Buffalo plus 5.5 and plus 176 outright. I love Buffalo in this spot. 3:15 ESPN, the First Responder Bowl, Memphis and Utah State. My line is Memphis by 2, total 58 and a 20th, and it's 7.5 and 58.5. Give me Utah State plus 7.5, and they're plus 230 to win outright for what that's worth. 6:45 on ESPN, you have the Birmingham Bowl, Coastal Carolina and East Carolina. My line is Coastal by 6, total 58 and 7/20, and it is ECU by 7.5, total 64.5. Wrong team is favored. Give me Coastal plus 7.5 and plus 225 to win the game on the field. And last but not least, 10:15 on ESPN, the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, Wisconsin and Oklahoma State. My line is Oklahoma State by 2.5, total 54 and a 20th, and it is Wisconsin by 3.5, total 45.5. The question is, do I go with the over or do I go with OK State? I do like OK State. I like all the dogs today to win outright, potentially. But for this pick, for the podcast, I'm going to take over 45.5 at minus 105. All right, now I'll move on to college basketball. We'll go over the slate for tonight after a day off from the sport yesterday, and it's a very small window for tonight as well. 7 o'clock, you have Georgia Southwestern and Jacksonville State, St. Elizabeth, and NJIT. We can skip those. SEC Network, Northwestern State, and Texas A&M. My line is A&M by 19 and a quarter, total of 146 and 9/20. And it is 15.5 and 145.5. I'm going to lay to 15.5 with Texas A&M. Next, we have Jacksonville and Notre Dame on the ACC Network. My line's Notre Dame by 7 and 3/4, total 134 and 3/20, and it is 7.5 and 129.5. I like the over. 8 o'clock on the Longhorn Network, Texas A&M Commerce at number 6, Texas. And my line's Texas 34, total 141 and 3/20, and it is 30.5 and 139.5. I'm going to lay the 30.5 with Texas. Fox Sports 1, Seton Hall, Marquette. Marquette was ranked yesterday. They're no longer ranked. Mine's Marquette by 4, total 141 and 3/5. And it is 6.5 and 142.5. I'm going to take Seton Hall getting the 6.5 in Milwaukee. And last but not least, SC State and Texas Tech. My line's Tech by 37.25, total 149 and 7/20. And it's 30.5 and 147.5. I'm going to lay the 30.5 points with Texas Tech. All right, now I'll move on to the NBA. We will recap the games from yesterday and look ahead to a big window for tonight. Nets over the Cavs, 125-117. Clippers over the Pistons, 142-131 in overtime. Heat over the Timberwolves, 113-110. Rockets over the Bulls, 133-118. Pelicans over the Pacers, 113-93. Spurs over the Jazz, 126-122. And the Blazers over the Hornets, 124-113. 7 o'clock, you have the Lakers and the Magic. My projected line for this is Orlando by 5.25, total 228 and 11/20. And Orlando is given 3, totals 235. I'm going to take the under. Sixers, Wizards. My line is the Sixers by 5.75, total 222 and 3/20, and it's 4 and 224. Slight under. 7:30 Rockets Celtics. My line is Celtics by 20.25, total 227 and 9/10, and it is 14.5 and 231. I'm going to lay the points with the Celtics. Hawks Pacers. My line is the Hawks by 2.25, total 229 and 3/10, and it is Hawks 1.5, total 237. Under. Clippers Raptors. My line is the Raptors by 3.5, total 219 and 7/10, and it is 5 and 219. Slight Clippers. 8 o'clock Suns Grizzlies. My line is the Grizzlies by 11.25, total 226 and 19/20, and it's 8 and 225.5. I'm going to lay the 8 with Memphis. Spurs Thunder. My line is the Thunder by 6.5, total 231 and 3/4, and it's 7 and 235.5. Under. 8:30 NBA TV. Knicks Mavs. My line is the Mavs by 3.25, total 223 and 7/10, and it is 5 and 220. So that's a line for them saying Jalen Brunson's not playing. It kind of reminds me of that Bulls line a little bit. I like the over in this game. 10 o'clock, Hornets Warriors. My line is Golden State by 6.5, total 232, and it is 4.5 and 237.5. Under. And last but not least, the Nuggets and the Kings. My line is Nuggets by 3.5, total 232 and 1/5, and it is 3 and 241. Under. A lot of high totals. All right, now I'll move on to the NHL. We'll go over the slate for tonight after the Christmas break. It's a big one, and it should be fun. 7 o'clock, you have the Blackhawks and the Hurricanes from Raleigh. Canes are minus 450. Blackhawks plus 130 or plus 340. My bad. Over under 6. Over is minus 120. Under is minus 102. Blackhawks plus 2.5 is minus 140. Canes minus 2.5 is plus 114. So the return to the 2.5s. So I'm going to go first period result. Hurricanes minus 110. Capitals Rangers. Rangers minus 154. Caps plus 128. Over under 6. Over is minus 114. Under is minus 106. Caps plus 1.5 is minus 194. Rangers minus 1.5 is plus 156. For this one, I'm going to go with the under. Bruins Sens. Bruins minus 192. Sens plus 158. Over under 6. Over is minus 124. Under is plus 102. Bruins minus 1.5 is plus 134. Sens plus 1.5 is minus 164. I'm going to go with the Bruins first period result, plus 136. Sabres Blue Jackets postponed. as I believe it's due to Sabres travel issues. We're going to check that real quick. Postponed due to severe winter weather conditions that have closed the airport. Makes sense. 7:30, Penguins Islanders is a big one. Pens minus 134, Isles plus 112, over under 6. Overs plus 102, unders minus 124. Pens minus 1.5 is plus 194. Isles plus 1.5 is minus 245. I'm going with the Islanders at home plus 112. They need the game. 8 o'clock, Stars Preds. Stars minus 128, Preds plus 106, over under 6. Overs minus 108, unders minus 112. Stars minus 1.5 is plus 186. Preds plus 1.5 is minus 235. I'm going to go with the under. Leafs Blues. Leafs minus 172, Blues plus 142, over under 6. Overs minus 122, unders even money. Leafs minus 1.5 is plus 138, Blues plus 1.5 is minus 170. For this one, I'm going to go with the Leafs in regulation minus 111. Wild Jets. Wild minus 120, Jets even money, over under 6. Overs minus 104, unders minus 118. Wild minus 1.5 is plus 10, Jets plus 1.5 is minus 265. I'm going with the Wild even money. Or, I'm sorry, the Jets even money is a home dog. Avs Coyotes. Avs minus 40, Coyotes plus 195, over under 5.5. Overs minus 114, unders minus 106. Avs minus 1.5 is plus 110, Coyotes plus 1.5 is minus 134, over. Oilers Flames. Flames minus 40, Oilers plus 116, over under 6.5. Overs minus 132, unders plus 108. Oilers plus 1.5 is minus 100. Flames minus 1.5 is plus 160. I'm going to go with the Flames in regulation at plus 114. 10 o'clock, Sharks Canucks from Vancouver. Canucks minus 146, Sharks plus 122, over under 6.5. Overs minus 132, unders even money. Sharks plus 1.5 is minus 92. Canucks minus 1.5 is plus 154. I'm going to go with the Canucks in regulation at plus 106. And last but not least, 10:30, Golden Knights Kings from Crypto. Kings minus 120, Vegas even money, over under 6. Overs minus 120, unders minus 102. Vegas plus 1.5 is minus 50. Kings minus 1.5 is plus 198. I'm going with Vegas even money as a dog. All right, English Premier League. We'll go over the results from yesterday, and we will look ahead to the games today. Brentford and Tottenham, 2-2 draw. Fulham over Crystal Palace, 3-0. Wolves over Everton, 2-1. Newcastle over Leicester City, 3-0. Brighton over Southampton, 3-1. Liverpool over Aston Villa, 3-1. Arsenal over West Ham, 3-1. Two games tonight, 12:30, you have Chelsea and Bournemouth. This is a big spot for Chelsea, in my opinion. They're minus 280 home favorites. Bournemouth 8-1, draw plus 410. I'm going to go with under 2.5 goals at plus 116. And 3:30, you have Man United and Nottingham Forest. Man United minus 320. Nottingham 8-1, draw plus 470. I'm going to go with over 3.5 goals at plus 124. All right, we're going to do English League Championship now. We'll go over the results from yesterday. And we do have some games today. Millwall over Watford 2-0. Sunderland over Blackburn 2-1. West Brom over Bristol City 2-0. Hull Blackpool 1-1 draw. Borough over Wigan 4-1. Huddersfield over Preston 2-1. Rotherham Stoke 2-2 draw. Sheffield United over Coventry 3-1. Cardiff and QPR 0-0 draw. And Luton over Norwich City 2-1. All right, so 12:15 we have Reading and Swansea. These two teams are pretty much even. So Reading's plus 190 at home. Swansea's plus 150 is the road favorite. Draw plus 220. I'm going to go with the draw. And Burnley and Birmingham at 3 o'clock. Burnley's a minus 170 favorite. Birmingham's plus 48. Draw plus 280. I'm going to go with over 2.5 goals at plus 104. And now we'll do results from English League One from yesterday and look ahead to the lone game today. Accrington, Stanley, and Barnsley 1-1 draw. MK Dons over Forest Green 1-0. Plymouth Argyle over Cheltenham 1-0. Sheffield Wednesday over Fleetwood 2-1. Ipswich Town over Oxford United 3-0. Cambridge United over Shrewsbury 2-1. Wycombe over Bristol Rovers 2-1. Exeter City and Portsmouth 0-0 draw. Port Vale over Morecambe 1-0. Burton over Lincoln City 3-0. And Charlton over Peterborough. Charlton and Peterborough 1-1 draw. Today at 10 o'clock you have Bolton and Derby County. Bolton's plus 160, Derby plus 170, draw plus 220. We're going to go with the draw at plus 220. All right, now I'm going to do my NFL power rankings for the week. The theme is the same theme I had with hockey yesterday. Most overrated and underrated players from each team over the last decade. All right, number 32 is the 32 is the Houston Texans. Most overrated player, we say Jalen Strong, former first-round pick, never panned out. And underrated, Whitney Merciless. Although you could make a case for Will Fuller for overrated for Houston. 31 is the Chicago Bears, overrated Mitch Trubisky, number 2 pick in the draft, just didn't work out. Held that team back when they had talent. And underrated Eddie Goldman, he was so good. Number 30, the Denver Broncos, overrated Bradley Chubb. I just felt he was overhyped on the Broncos a little bit. And then underrated Demaryius Thomas. He was just a really good wide receiver, and it's just unfortunate that he's no longer with us. Number 29 is the Indianapolis Colts, overrated Jacoby Brissett. They thought that he was going to be the answer for them and wasn't. And underrated, I think Andrew Luck has become underrated because I think the biggest thing that happened in the league that nobody talks about over the last 5 years was the retirement of Andrew Luck. Or else the Colts would be right there in that division. They'd probably be winning that division if Andrew Luck was Andrew Luck and still playing football. Number 28, the Atlanta Falcons, most overrated Matt Ryan. Had the MVP year, made the Super Bowl, but the more you think about it, especially with like his indie year this year, you could argue that he just had a good team around him. An underrated Keanu Neal, really good safety for them. Number 27, the Cleveland Browns, overrated Odell Beckham Jr. They thought he was the missing piece for them, but he was a complete bust for the Browns. And underrated Wyatt Teller, the talented interior lineman for them. Number 26, the Los Angeles Rams, overrated Tavon Austin. They thought he was going to be this electric wide receiver. And underrated Robert Woods. I just think that he just got overshadowed because of the presence of Cooper Kupp. Number 25, the New Orleans Saints, overrated Jarius Byrd. They signed him as a big-time free agent at the time, never worked out. And underrated Marcus Williams. That's going to be one of the bigger free agent losses for the Saints going forward. He was really underappreciated, I felt. And people point at him and say, oh, he screwed up the Minneapolis Miracle. That's why he's not very good. But no, he's good. Number 24, the Arizona Cardinals. Overrated for me, Carson Palmer, because that team was really good, and I thought that he held them back in big spots. And underrated, Tyrann Mathieu. I really think that he was a great player for them in their secondary. Number 23, the Carolina Panthers. Overrated star, Lodolelli. Good player, but I just don't think he was as good as people made him out to be. And underrated, Luke Kuechly. Obviously, another player retired too early, in my opinion. A good what if for them. Number 22, the Las Vegas Raiders. Overrated, Jonathan Hankins. They brought him as a free agent, and their defense still stunk. And underrated, Darren Waller. I think he's underrated right now, too. Number 21, the Tennessee Titans. Overrated, Marcus Mariota. Number 2 pick in the draft. And the team was good around him, but it was just stale. And then they made the change to Tannehill, and then they had a different swagger to them. And then underrated, Taylor Lewan. He's just a rock on that offensive line. And I say that because he's missed most of the year this year, and if he was healthy, maybe they're better. Number 20, the New England Patriots. Overrated, Philip Dorsett. They thought he was going to be a WR1 for them. Nope. And underrated, Joe Thuney. Just was a really good lineman for them, and a guy they probably shouldn't have let walk away. Number 19, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Overrated, Jameis Winston. That's because Brady went in there and won the Super Bowl right away, and that team was always good. And Winston held them back. And then underrated, Levante David, just an awesome player in their pass rush, and still gets overlooked. Number 18, the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, come on, you know what the answer for overrated is going to be. I think this year proved it with Denver, Russell Wilson. He was just carried by that great team around him. And an underrated Marshawn Lynch because, yeah, he had a trash mouth at times. That guy carried that offense. He had the big run against the Saints in the wildcard game in 2010. So, I just think that he's underappreciated. Number 17, the Detroit Lions. Overrated. This is a hard one for me in terms of who to pick for this. But I am going to say Eric Ebron. I just don't think he ever lived up to potential with the Lions. And an underrated Taylor Decker's just been a rock on their offensive line for a long time now. Number 16, the Green Bay Packers. Overrated, Eddie Lacy. He just was always out of shape, and they made him out to be some star. And an underrated Clay Matthews. I just think that he was just a rock on that defense for years. Number 15, the New York Jets. Overrated, Eric Decker. Proved to be a Peyton Manning product. And an underrated Sheldon Richardson. He was in a lot of trouble when he was a player with the Jets, but when he was on the field, he was producing. Number 14, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Overrated, Blake Bortles. It's like Mitch Trubisky with the Bears. Jaguars made the AFC title game the 1 year. But if they had a better quarterback, maybe they win the Super Bowl. An underrated Sheldon Richardson, Calais Campbell. Big part of that defense. And they got rid of him for little. Number 13, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Overrated Juju Smith-Schuster. To me, he really only had one, wonderful year with them, and that was, before Ben Roethlisberger started to decline as a quarterback. So you could argue he was a product of the peak end of Ben. And now a product of Mahomes. An underrated Cameron Hayward. Still a rock on that pass rush in Pittsburgh, and I think his production didn't get the love it should, and still doesn't. Number 12, the Baltimore Ravens. Overrated Joe Flacco. He really only had that one hot playoff run with them. But after that, what did he do? Nothing. And then underrated Marshall Yanda, really great player on their offensive line through the years. Number 11, the Washington Commanders. Overrated Landon Collins. They signed him as a free agent, and it really didn't work out. And then underrated Pierre Garçon. That guy always showed up in big games and was a clean wide receiver. Number 10, the New York Football Giants. The reason for Joe Flacco is why you could argue Eli Manning for overrated for the Giants over the last decade, but I did not go there. For me, for the Giants, Golden Tate. I know they ended up cutting him, and he really didn't contribute to the Giants. It's because of the big contract they gave him, and they lauded him to be the Odell Beckham Jr. replacement. And underrated Dalvin Tomlinson. Really solid player for them on their D-line, and now he's on Minnesota. Number 9, the Miami Dolphins. Overrated on the Ndamukong Suh. They brought him in when he was a free agent, and it just didn't work out there for him. And underrated, controversial, but I'm going to say it, Richie Incognito. Yeah, he was the face of that bullying scandal that team had. But he was a really good player for the Dolphins. Really good. Number 8, the Minnesota Vikings. Overrated Case Keenum. Same thing for Carson Palmer. Held that team back when it mattered. Although he did make that throw in the Minneapolis Miracle game. And underrated Stephon Diggs. He made the catch in that game. And I just think that he was really underrated for that team. Number 7, the Los Angeles Chargers. Overrated Russell Okung. Good lineman, but they traded him away, and that made you scratch your head, right? But I just didn't think he was the right fit on the Chargers, and there was a reason they traded him. And then underrated Keenan Allen. I just think he's money when he's healthy. Number 6, the Dallas Cowboys. Overrated unpopular opinion, DeMarcus Lawrence. And this is not because I think he's been pretty good this year. It's, to me, the years in the past where his stats look good. But if you want to be the leader of that pass rush, they make a big sack in a big game. So this is more of a Cowboys issue, more so than the DeMarcus Lawrence issue for me. And underrated Travis Frederick. He was a part of that great offensive line, and he was their center. And I think that his performance was overlooked because they had they still do have Zach Martin and Tyron Smith, but they had those guys then too. Number 5, I almost gave it away, the San Francisco 49ers. Overrated Colin Kaepernick. What else is there to say? He's probably the most overrated player of these 32 overrated players. To me, he was a product of Jim Harbaugh and the talent around him. And this has nothing to do with the off-field stuff. And underrated, Joe Staley, really good offensive lineman for the 49ers when they were a contender under Harbaugh. And a little bit after that as well. Number 4, the Cincinnati Bengals. Overrated Jeremy Hill. They thought he was going to be what Joe Mixon is now, but he wasn't. And underrated Geno Atkins. I really think that his performance went unnoticed in his heyday with the Bengals, especially like in the later years. Number 3, the Buffalo Bills. Overrated Tyrod Taylor. This is only because Rex Ryan made him out to be some star. And then underrated Cole Beasley. I just think he's a really good wide receiver. And has always made some big plays. Number 2, the Kansas City Chiefs. Overrated Eric Fisher is the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Never lived up to it. And underrated Alex Smith. And this is because those Chiefs teams with Smith were better than giving credit for. And I know I picked overrated for guys like Bortles and Trubisky. But those guys were high picks in the draft. I know so was Alex Smith, but this was his second team. And I thought that when he arrived there, he gave them some stability. And, of course, he was a mentor to Patrick Mahomes. So, you got to give Alex Smith his due with Kansas City. And number 1, the Philadelphia Eagles. I know they're coming off a loss, but they're still number 1. Overrated Nick Foles. You could argue Carson Wentz too, but I'm going to go with Foles. Because I just think that he really hasn't been good outside of Philadelphia. This is more of a Foles issue than an Eagles issue, but the reality is that the talent around Foles made him look better than he was in Philadelphia. And that's my big fear with Gardner Minshew in Philly. And underrated Ronald Darby, really good defensive back. And I know he's hurt this year, but the Eagles, I felt that Darby was a really good player for Philadelphia. So there you have it for the power rankings for this week. All right, now we'll move on to news and notes for today. Not a lot of stuff. We'll start with basketball. Kyle Kuzma is seen as a viable trade target as he's being viewed around the league as a gettable trade target before the deadline. I think a lot of teams would be interested in Kyle Kuzma. Tyrese Maxey could return on Friday against the Pelicans after being out since November 18th with a foot injury. That is really good news for Philly. Domantas Sabonis, questionable for tonight's game against the Nuggets with the fracture of ligament in right thumb. The AP poll is out in college basketball. Number 1, Purdue. Number 2, UConn. Number 3, Houston. Number 4, Kansas. Number 5, Arizona. Number 6, Texas. Number 7, Tennessee. 8, Alabama. 9, Arkansas. 10, Gonzaga. 11, UCLA. 12, Baylor. 13, Virginia. 14, Miami. 15, Wisconsin. 16, Indiana. 17, Duke. 18, TCU. 19, Kentucky. And 20, Auburn. 21, Mississippi State. 22, Xavier. Tied with New Mexico. 24, West Virginia, and 25, North Carolina. So West Virginia makes the rankings for the first time this season, the first time in 2 years. Carolina back in the rankings, stands having 4 losses. Miami with the big jump, and rightfully so. Virginia with the big drop. And then the top 5 remains the same. And then others receiving votes: Charleston, Maryland, Memphis, Illinois, Ohio State, Virginia Tech, Missouri, San Diego State, Iowa State, Marquette, Texas Tech, Michigan State, Providence, Kansas State, USC, San Francisco, and dropping from the rankings: Illinois, Virginia Tech, Marquette, and Arizona State. And the other thing is that New Mexico finally in the rankings, still undefeated, so good for them. And then another big drop team is Mississippi State after suffering their first loss of the season. Several teams have reached out to Carlos Correa amid belief his camp won't budge on length or money in the Mets contract. And the chances for the Mets, 55%, according to the New York Post. Yikes. And the big news from yesterday, the Broncos fired head coach Nathaniel Hackett one day after losing 51-14 to the Rams. And senior assistant coach Jerry Roseberg will take over after the firing of Hackett. Wow, so Denver couldn't even wait to fire him until the end of the year. That just shows how bad that team is this year. Since all these injuries and stuff. But Hackett was terrible. Of course they fired him. Now the question is, are they going to be in the Sean Payton sweepstakes? Tom Brady not considering retirement. As he was asked, he goes, I really don't, in terms of I really don't consider retiring. Lane Johnson out for the regular season as he'll miss the last 2 games with a abdominal injury. Brutal for Philly. They need him back for the postseason, in my opinion. Mike White cleared the play as he'll start against the Seahawks. That's good news for the Jets. Budda Baker out the final 2 games as he fractured his shoulder during the loss against the Bucs. And he didn't come out of the game, which is wild. Tua Tagovailoa is in concussion protocol, as Mike McDaniel was informed of Tua's symptoms yesterday after he reported them to doctors. And the union says it's standard to review process leading to a player landing in concussion protocol. So there's a chance Tua doesn't play against the Patriots, which opens the door for them to potentially take a stranglehold on one of those, or I should say on the last playoff spot in the AFC. So that's it for news and notes. And last but not least, my best bet of the day brought to you by FanDuel. So I have some options for best bet. Yesterday's was a winner with the Clippers against the Pistons as it took overtime for the Clippers to win and cover the spread. So, for tonight, for best bet, there's a lot of unders I like in the NBA. But the question is, do I go with one of them or do I go with another sport? I'm going to go with another sport. And the other sport is hockey. I think the Blackhawks are hideous. I really do. I'm going to go with the Carolina Hurricanes first period result, -110 as my best bet of the day. We lay a half unit on it. So we'll see how that goes. So tomorrow's show, we will be doing the usual stuff. And then I'm going to do Major League Baseball power rankings at this point of the offseason. And then I'm going to do each team's most overrated and underrated players over the last 10 years. Hope you guys have a great day, everyone.